Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Again, a very, very strong thank you to the entire organization. Our work has been terrific across the board, across every platform, and it's just been exceptional. So thank you to everybody. And I can once again assure you that the world is with us in an enormous way, both on television and in digital. Yesterday was the biggest day in the history of CNN Digital, making it 2 out of the last 3 days have been the two of the last 3 days have been the 2 biggest days in the history of CNN Digital. Yesterday was the biggest day. Veritas Hartley, how many unique visitors did we have to CNN Digital yesterday?
Well, we were hoping we could get 100 million, which was a real stretch because the previous record was 77.5 million. But we did. We got 116 million unique users across our global platforms yesterday. 116.
Thank you very much. To reiterate, 116 million. The previous record was 77 million. An extraordinary day. And we are off to a very similar pace today. Television is very much the same. So all I'm trying to say is the world is with us. The world is counting on us. And I thank you all for coming through for everybody. Obviously, this remains the story, and we're going to stick with it. I know there's a lot of interest in bringing in other storylines. I believe we need to be focused on who is going to be president of the United States. There is going to be time for all the other stories, and I'm going to introduce a storyline that I do want to start thinking about in a moment. But who is going to be president is what our focus needs to be. The presidential election is still undecided. It's still undecided. A razor-thin margin separates Trump and Biden in these uncalled states. And either man could still win, although Biden has an easier path. Either man could win. We do expect more votes in all of these places today. So that is the storyline that I want to follow. Our schedule today on television will be from 10 to noon, Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett, and then from noon until sometime this evening, 7 or beyond, Wolf Blitzer, Jake Tapper, Abdi Dana, John King will take over the coverage. And we'll obviously determine where it goes once we see how the storyline develops. Let me turn it over to David Chalian for what is the latest.
Good morning, Jeff. As you said, yes, we are still with the presidential election hanging in the balance here. Obviously, the 6 states that have not been called yet, we remain watching the vote totals come in. In Nevada, we expect around noon Eastern time today to get some new vote reports, specifically out of Clark County, and specifically their earlier votes, and obviously it's a big Democratic area, so we will see if that ends up being enough information for a projection in Nevada. Arizona, we may not get much more vote until later this evening. Trump obviously has narrowed Biden's edge there as more votes came in last night, and the 2 sort of vote updates that we got out of Arizona last night certainly benefited Trump's position in that race. Obviously, Joe Biden is still in the lead. The Biden campaign claims they're going to maintain that lead, of course, but Trump narrowed his edge, and we need to see more vote coming in from Arizona. If it comes in like that, that could get closer still, obviously. In Georgia, the Secretary of State just announced that there are 50,000 outstanding ballots. I think the last I looked, Trump's lead has shrunk to 18,000 votes. It may be slightly less than that now, but obviously Biden has significantly narrowed the gap there in Georgia, and there are enough votes there that outstanding. If he continues to win Biden at the big pace that he's been winning, he could perhaps overtake Trump as Trump's lead in that state. Obviously, razor thin, as you mentioned. And in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia is still at 70% reporting. So obviously, there's a huge swath of Democratic votes there to be counted and reported. When that happens, should we get that today, it is possible that Joe Biden will overtake Donald Trump's lead in Pennsylvania today, which is all to point to your larger point, Jeff, which is we don't know who is going to win this, and we are in that position of these votes needing to be counted. And this is the same message we were delivering before the election, and obviously every hour after, about sort of the patience for this process to play out. But it is a presidential race at the moment that offers more paths to Joe Biden than it does to Donald Trump, and where in some of these critical states that would get him over 270, the more recent vote reporting trends have been in Biden's favor. So we will see if that maintains today. Our battleground voting teams obviously still constantly reporting out what local elections officials are saying about how many ballots are outstanding, and we rely on that. There are some alternate models and estimates out there of what may be outstanding, so I think we will just continue to sort of look at what elections officials are saying and keep looking at how much of that outstanding vote truly exists in all these places. So beyond that, waiting for the votes to be reported, obviously both the Trump campaign and Biden campaign are employing political strategies in this moment of suspension, of suspended animation. On the Trump side, it is a constant filing or threatening to file of lawsuits and the threat of recount filings, and it seems not at all consistent across the board about what those lawsuits or recount possibilities would be claimed on. It's sort of scattershot and everywhere. So everywhere a state gets called for Joe Biden or a lead for Biden emerges in the vote count, you see a threatened lawsuit on different grounds from the Trump team. I think it's really noteworthy and interesting that we didn't see Donald Trump yesterday, and we'll be on the lookout to see if he adds anything today publicly. For Biden's part, he continues to try to strike that balance of asserting the belief that he's won without getting too far ahead of the vote counting and the projections. You saw the reporting from our team yesterday about how much his team has sort of lessons learned from the 2000 Bush versus Gore fight in this kind of moment, in terms of projecting that confidence of what the outcome is ultimately going to be, and trying to remain in the driver's seat in that way. But again, not trying to be presumptuous and sticking to this notion that all the votes have to be counted. So he's in this position also of not getting ahead of that. It would not surprise me if perhaps we saw him again today, as we've been seeing him each day. You also saw that they're taking those first steps of launching a transition website and what have you. Again, all about trying to strike the balance of the moment. I just would say, it is not at all a certain thing that we will have somebody get to 270 today. This could certainly go into tomorrow. So just, it's all dependent on the data that come in from these states. And obviously, Fox and AP having already projected Arizona for Biden, which we know was not very well received by the president and his team. If indeed they're able to make a projection in Nevada or whatever, there's a possibility that those organizations may be able to get Biden to 270 before the organizations that have not yet projected Arizona. But we should just be prepared again for patience as the vote totals come in today. And I'll let Virginia go into the great reporting from LipTAC on sort of Trump's mindset right now, and I think that is where we start, Jeff.
Okay, great. And I just want to reiterate to everybody what an exceptional job our team has done on making the calls with each of the states. And I think I said beforehand, and I think it's been borne out, that we're not going to be pressured by any other news organizations that have made calls, and I think you've seen that. And I feel we've done a really excellent job on that front. Virginia?
Okay, so in terms of the president of it all, this idea that he feels like it's been stolen from him, that he is not in a good place, that he is pushing this, very clearly pushing this legal strategy. And just a few notes on that legal strategy. You've seen this morning, this is what the president always said he was going to do, and this is what we're seeing this morning. The Trump campaign just announced that they're in Nevada this morning going to file a suit. We believe this is based on 10,000 non-residents that they claim voted there. This comes on top of the Supreme Court case in Pennsylvania. The Supreme Court has until 5 o'clock today. It is completely unclear whether or not they will take that case. And then we have also the ones in Georgia and recount, and in Michigan, and the call for the recount in Wisconsin. So we will continue to watch throughout the day. It is important to remember that, as Ben Ginsburg has said, these are Hail Marys. There is, as I said yesterday, it has been remarkably calm through this period, and there have not been any real reports of things going wrong. The other thing I just want to mention is that we are also starting to see protests with this balance in power. We have the Detroit, for the Trump part, these chanters in Detroit saying stop the count. At the same time, in Arizona, they're saying let the count go. We are expecting there is going to be another one in Philly today for a protect the vote, so we've got Shimon there. But that activity is clearly scaling up. And I think that's sort of where we start.
Okay. Thoughts on the election? White House, Trump, Biden, anything?
Yeah, Jeff, hey, it's Stacey Wolf.
Hi, Stacey.
Can you hear me? Hey. So
yes,
my question is, before the election results started coming in, I remember hearing a lot of discussion explaining why we would be waiting so long for a result. But in the last couple of days, I haven't heard that as much. And I think for people who don't follow politics the way everyone on this call does, there's still a lot of viewers who are like, wait, why can states like California and New York manage to count all in one day and these other states aren't? And I don't know, if we can insert that back into the coverage, it might be helpful.
Okay. Good. Good observation. Thank you.
I just want to say, to be clear, obviously, New York and California cannot count all in one day. They're safe states and they make projections, but as we saw in the 2018 midterms, it took a week for California to count. It is a good suggestion that we should remind, again, this is an election in the midst of a pandemic. People are voting by millions and millions more in a way that they haven't before by mail, and it is taking more time in more places to count, but by no means do California and New York count in one day. That we've seen that.
Well, and to that point, and I actually think it raises another point, is from time to time I do, and we will do this, want to be highlighting the popular vote, even though it's not the road to 270. Joe Biden and Donald Trump have each received the most votes of any two people in American history, but Biden's up now by about 3.5 million votes. And because actually, to David's point, California and New York in particular are not anywhere near complete, that vote gap is probably going to rise closer to 5 million. So it's more than likely Joe Biden wins this by 5 million votes once California and New York are fully counted. And I just think that's an important point to point out. Other thoughts?
Hey, Jeff and David, we may need to have some guidance for everybody because, David, is there a chance that Nevada is going to give us enough results where there might be a projection on Nevada today?
We don't know. We have to wait to see what they give us, and then we'll be able to.
Okay, so it's a possibility. If it's a possibility.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Yeah. So if it's a possibility, that means if we could make a projection, that means the Associated Press could make it.
This is exactly what I just stated at the top, Rick. That Fox and AP could possibly, because they projected Arizona, be in a place to have a president-elect before other organizations who haven't are.
Yeah. So
our guidance. I think, Rick, you established this guidance. Our guidance remains that no one is to report, use social media, do anything that is not CNN approved and CNN reported until we do so. We're fully aware of all of the scenarios that are out there. And so that's what I tried to say before. I think we've done an exceptional job in calling the states at the right time and doing this properly. We were ahead of everybody yesterday on Michigan and Wisconsin. We've gotten it right, but we're fully aware of what's out there. Our guidance remains the same. When we're ready to call it, we'll call it, and no one at CNN is supposed to is allowed to do anything that has not been reported by CNN. When we're ready to report something, I think everybody will know. David, did I get that right?
Perfect.
Right. And I may have missed that because I was listening to something on air, and I apologize, David. The difference in one network reporting something versus the AP, which is carried by virtually everybody but us. So just so this will be a more unique situation than we've ever faced before, and I just wanted to point it out because it is the AP, and virtually every news organization and website of any prominence subscribes, and that'll just be everywhere. And I know you all know that. I'm just saying it's just a circumstance that I can't recall we've ever had before. We have to do what we have to do, but it's going to be, it'll be a challenge for all these other news organizations. It's a great media story, which is different than what we're doing on air. But it also will be something that everybody who is online will be reading. So I'm sure we'll have to find a way to address it because our viewers and readers will be seeing it when they're not on CNN or CNN Digital.
Okay. I remain fully confident in our approach to this, and I'm confident we will handle it properly.
Hey, Jeff, it's John. Just one observation and one question. One, the challenges and the claims being put forward and court challenges being put forward by the Trump team, we should remind people that just as we've been saying it would take a long time to count the votes election week, that they've been basically stating for much longer that their plan has been to contest in court all results that come after election night. So while this is sort of sad and desperate and of dubious validity, we should remind people that they've been planning this before we had a single vote count, just to put it in context, because people are going to believe it, and folks on Fox are already spreading the illegitimate election rumor, and it would be obviously bad for the country if it took root. The question is, regarding Arizona, I respect that we're being restrained, but I just wonder how we're accounting for Mark Kelly's lead in the polls over McSally, which is, I think, 120,000 votes, and how we're accounting for that to being restrained about calling Arizona writ large.
Yeah, so I don't want to take time on this call to go through every single assessment of every single race, John. Obviously, when we have confidence and are able to project a race, our team will do so.
Yeah. I'll give you
good. Thank you. Okay, let me, I'm going to raise another storyline that at the right time I want to make sure that we begin to address as well, which is that, yes, the Senate map is still unclear and undecided, probably because there will be probably 2 runoffs in Georgia come January, but it's hard to see how the Republicans don't retain control. And regardless, certainly the Democrats did not do in the Senate what they had hoped to do. Similarly, in the House, the Democrats certainly did not do what they had hoped to do. And frankly, the Republicans are going to pick up more than a handful of seats. And beyond that, obviously, the presidential race is incredibly tight. It is clear that, or I think we need to be discussing, the Democratic strategy, the Democratic approach did not work in an overwhelming way here at all. And I think we all need to be honest about that, and at the right time acknowledge that. Now, it may end up that a divided government may be what's best for the United States, but it's also, especially with regard to Republican control of the Senate, if that's what happens, that's also going to change the calculus a little bit for Joe Biden and his what he wants to get done, maybe who he can get confirmed, and things like that. So there's a storyline here, and the other storyline is we'll have to see what happens in a lame duck session and whether a stimulus bill gets through. But I think this is the old Wolf Blitzer to Nancy Pelosi question: why didn't she take what she could on a deal a month ago, get relief to the American people, and did that hurt her candidates as well? So I think that's a developing storyline that we need to, at the appropriate time. The key thing today is who is going to be president of the United States, and how will we know that, and when will we know it? But I am going to want to move to feathering in that other storyline. Are there any other thoughts on politics?
Hi, Jeff. There are so many other storylines to take away. One is that Trumpism has been validated. It should not have been such a close election. Biden kept saying this is not who we are, but maybe this is who we are. Other storylines is that Republicans did not pay a price for helping Trump. Pollsters and pundits were wrong again. There's so many storylines.
Yeah. So I think all of those are absolutely valid things to look at. I think some of those get at what I was talking about, and I think we're obviously going to have time. We're going to have the rest of the year to get to all of those. I think those are all valid things to look at. Again, I think you got to remain focused on what the key thing is today. But I do think that to your first point or two, that the country absolutely does not appear to have been where or certainly with the candidates that were up for some of these positions, where Democrats thought they were. Other thoughts?
Hey, it's Stephanie Becker. Just want to throw this out for later, that the polls does not help us.
Yeah. So is that who is that? I'm sorry.
It's Becker.
Oh, hello, Stephanie. Okay. Yeah, listen, there's no question about that. And I think there's going to be a whole conversation about polling and shy Trump voters and who clearly exist, and polling. I don't want to make this story about polling right now. That will come without question. I totally agree with you. I couldn't agree more. Sets up expectations that are false and are not helpful, are actually bad for the country. I couldn't agree more. But again, I think there will be plenty of time to get there. I don't think that's where the story is today or tomorrow. But I totally agree.
Hey, Jeff, it's David. I would just say that before we start making pronouncements about what the electorate writ large thinks or doesn't think, we should wait for the full popular vote to come in and see where the country is. Because I think part of the story is how ideologically segregated the country has become. And I think the map tells that story as well. It's not just that Trump won in these red counties; it's he won overwhelmingly. And there's very few places that are, so that tells a different story. And that really is because that drives the Electoral College story. And that puts us in our predicament.
I agree. So that was the point I was trying to make about the popular vote. I think he's going to win by, 5 to 6 million votes. So there's no question that there's a majority. And there's no question that the electoral, the way that we elect the president does affect all of that. On the other hand, the Electoral College is not what elects the Senate and the House, and so there are different storylines there. We do have to wait to see what happens. So I agree. That's why I don't want to get there. I don't think we should, be doing much of this today or tomorrow. We're going to get to all of it. But at the same time, there's no question that whether it's because of polls, or whether it's because of candidates that were put up, or whether it's because of the platforms they ran on, there's no question that Democrats not do as well as they thought they were going to do.
Well, I would just add one more thing. It's also Donald Trump's success at getting his people out, because the Democrats that didn't do so well in the House stuff are running in Trump areas. And it's different than 2018 when Donald Trump, who has incredible success at driving turnout of supporters, is on the top of the ticket, which he wasn't in 2018.
Agreed. Totally.
Jeff, I just wanted to bring up that we are doing because I think one of the issues that is happening right now, and it has to do with the counting of votes, is that in the Latino community that actually helped Trump in Florida, there is a rampant social media disinformation campaign about how people are stealing votes and the election by not counting and all of that. That's coming as the New York Times reported this morning from a disinformation campaign on social media. We know that a lot of the sentiment was being driven by social media disinformation. And so we are at CNN Espanol doing that story today. Because it's going crazy on social media with saying, they're stealing the election from Trump.
Right. So I think the other point that's important to make and push back on all this is Trump and his allies are saying that the election, was stolen from him, but somehow it wasn't stolen from the Republican senators who did a lot better, and the Republican House that did a lot better, but it was only stolen from him. So I think the whole thing is, be careful to not give so much oxygen to this either.
Yeah.
Hey, one other thread, Jeff, back to your point about the Senate races. I think there's a story to be done on sort of the air war versus the ground war approach to the elections. when you look at the exorbitant amount of money that the Democrats spent to lose so many of these key Senate races and compare it to the ground efforts in those states, I think that is also an interesting thread to pursue.
Yeah, again, whether that's air war versus ground war, whether that's candidates who never had a shot, whether that's where those states are. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors. Again, I don't want to get too far afield here. We have one focus today: who is going to be president of the United States, and when are we going to know? And I want to make sure that our focus is on the right story. The other story that obviously is getting lost, but we got to make sure that we are aware of it, is what's going on with coronavirus. Yesterday was the worst day in the United States for new cases. Ben, you want to give us a quick update, please?
Absolutely. I'll keep it real quick. As you mentioned yesterday, the worst new case day since the pandemic began. Over 100,000 new cases yesterday for the first time. The 5 single highest case days have now all occurred in the last week. This is getting worse. This Tuesday and Wednesday, also the first time that the U.S. reported back-to-back deaths over 1,000 since early September, according to Johns Hopkins. And also over the last 7 days, the U.S. now has a positivity rate over 7%. This is the first time this has happened since August 2nd. New warnings from the White House Coronavirus Task Force in reports issued to states as people move indoors and cases increase exponentially. The report says partial or incomplete mitigation leads to prolonged community spread, hospitalizations, and increased fatalities. This is obviously exactly what is happening across the country. The report offered 3 things that everyone should be doing. Don't gather without a mask. Always wear a mask when you are around people in public places, and stop gatherings beyond immediate household until cases and test positivity decrease significantly. Could not be more clear, but is anybody listening? And the last thing I will mention is a very bizarrely timed new tweet from the CDC director yesterday about something I thought we had all learned a long time ago. He said, now is the time to develop a testing strategy to maximize our ability to identify the silent epidemic of asymptomatic COVID infections. By the CDC's own estimate, 40% of people with COVID are asymptomatic. So identifying them and isolating these cases is key to ending the pandemic. I will leave the headlines there. Political reporters can handle these threads from across the country. Nick Watt is available from LA on the latest headlines if needed, but there is no wrap package today. Biana is in New York for education, and Sanjay and Elizabeth from Atlanta on health.
Okay. I do think we should just, it's worth noting from time to time what is going on this front. Back to the election, I think one other storyline to note slightly is, again, Wall Street has rallied the last 2 days, and we should keep our eye on that. Again, I think that's a function of they like the idea of a divided government. Other thoughts? Anyone else? Okay, again, as I said, we're going to have to see where the storyline takes us today. As Rick has highlighted, we're going to have to see how and when we can call certain races and the impact that will have. It's obviously a huge responsibility that we are fully aware of. And so today will be a big and important day. Please make sure we follow all of the CNN guidelines. Don't make any mistakes on a personal level in terms of tweeting or social platforms. Follow the CNN reporting, the CNN guidance. Let's see how today unfolds. I laid out the schedule on television for everybody. Again, that is highly subject to change depending on where the storyline is. Let's see where it goes. Let's have another great day. Thank you, everybody, and we'll talk later. Bye-bye.